A month ago I got a request to make a video about recording acoustic and electric instruments in a poor environment. So today we'll be battling all kind of noises and reflections and stuff like that. So this video will have 4 sections. First I will talk about preparation of the room. Next we'll talk about stuff we can do during the recording. Next I'll talk about some post-processing, and finally I'll give you a couple overall advices. So let's start with room preparation. Obviously the first thing you have to do before recording is turn off all your noise sources. I'm talking about fans, air conditioners, stuff like that. It may sound obvious, but if you spend a lot of time in that environment, you may be so used to those noise sounds that you won't notice them until you play back your recording and there's suddenly a clock ticking over your voice or something like that. So I've seen that happen even in professional studios a couple of times. So if you spend a lot of time in your recording environment, just make a checklist of things you have to turn off before you start to record, and that will save you a lot of grief. Second one is electrical and radio interference. So obviously turn off all your cell phones and make sure your dad is not using his welding machine in the garage while you're recording. And now let's talk about the actual recording process. First of all, while we're still on topic of electrical interference, if you're recording an electric instrument like a guitar or a bass, you probably deal with electrical interference every now and then in your signal. And most of the time solution is quite simple. You just have to ask your artist to turn to the left or to the right 90 degrees or something like that, and most of this interference will disappear. So don't be lazy, spend some time to find the position which is less noisy. Second one, if you're recording an acoustic instrument and there is some noise source in your room that you can get rid of, for example, if you have a recording computer in the same room you are recording instrument, you can take advantage of your microphone's pickup pattern. For example, this is a cardioid microphone, and if you do recording you probably know that those kind of microphones pick up whatever is in front of them and reject everything that comes from the back. So if you have some kind of noise source in your room you can't turn off, you can just play the microphone the way that its back end is pointed towards that noise source, and then place your artist according to that microphone's position. Just keep in mind that it's still priority to have your artist in the comfortable position, so make that whenever possible, whenever you can reject the noise source and still keep your artist in a comfortable position. Next one is that most of the reflections in your recording actually come from the front of the microphone. So there is a popular misconception that, for example, when people make portable vocal booth, they make they place absorption material right in front of the singer. But if the singer has a hard surface like a wall or a window behind them, guess what? The microphone is pointed right toward that surface and it still picks up all the reflections from that wall. So if you find yourself in that position, just try to relocate your recording setup or just put some blanket or curtains over that hard surface. Next one is don't be too loud. When you sing or play too loud in an untreated room, you actually excite a lot of room reflections that get picked up by your microphone. But at the same time, if you perform too quiet, you have to crank up those microphone preamps really hard and you'll get a lot of preamp noise. You don't have to worry about that in professional studio too much, but if you're in a home studio, you have to try to find that balance between being too loud and being too quiet. Next one, close mics. Obviously, the closer the mic to the source, the less room reflections you get. So if you're doing a multi-microphone session, for example, if you're recording drums, just keep in mind that in the final mix you won't be able to have these room mics as high as you probably have with the professional drum recording. So you won't be able to get this perfect cymbal wash or snare sound from the room mics. So when you're setting up the drums, when you're dialing the tones, the mic position, try to create the best sound possible with the closed mics. And don't count on your room mics too much. And the last one is quite opposite of the previous one, is that you actually can embrace the low fineness of your room. For example, if you've been following me on social media, you've probably seen that picture a few months ago. This is an extra mic we used on a drum recording. And here's how it sounds compared to regular room mics. Pay attention to the snare sound. So quite often you can find something cool and useful in those crappy room recordings. Just pay attention to the recorded sound and keep in mind that you'll probably find use for them, but not the one you initially expected. And now to the post-processing. There are three things you can usually do to salvage your bad room recording. First of all, it's noise gates, especially when we're talking about dialogues. It will help you to cut out the noise between the words and phrases. Just make sure not to overdo it and end up with the recording that sounds too choppy and unnatural. Alternatively, you can just manually chop off these silence parts or use your DAW's automated functions, for example, strip silence or dynamic split or whatever it's called in your DAW. And if you learn those functions, you'll have more control and it will probably be just as fast as using as dialing noise gate settings. Second one is my favorite, is using an EQ. The idea is that you can cut away everything that doesn't belong to your instrument spectrum. For example, if you're recording a ukulele, it doesn't have a lot of low-end information, so you can just high pass it quite aggressively and you'll still have the full spectrum of the instrument, but you'll cut off a lot of the noise. One more example, if you're doing voice recordings, you probably don't have much information above 5 or 7K, but you have a lot of noise there, so if you low pass your voiceovers at that frequencies, you'll end up with much cleaner recordings and you'll still have your full voice spectrum. And the last one is profiling EQs. This is probably the most powerful tool, and basically how it works is that some EQ plugins have this profiling function and you can show them a short clip of your room noise without you performing, and then they'll just figure out which kind of frequencies that noise have, and then they'll surgically cut those frequencies out of your performance and you'll end up with a way cleaner sound. Let me show you. This is a sample of my voice recording with some room reflections and a computer working nearby. And now a short sample of silence without me talking. This is a sample of my voice recording with some room reflections and a computer working nearby. And now a short sample of silence without me talking. And finally, a couple more devices. First, consider going to a professional studio. Especially if you're doing something simple like a voiceover vocals or acoustic guitar or something like that. You don't have to go to the expensive professional recording studio with a huge live room and stuff like that. You can just go to the small semi-professional studio with a small vocal booth. And there's a lot of them there, quite cheap. They're probably cheaper than you think. And there's probably a few of them in your area. And by doing that, you'll just end up with the way better recording that you'll ever do in your bedroom. And the second advice, if you do a lot of recording and even those cheap studio hours will cost you a lot, just do acoustic treatment in your room. And you may say I'm a hypocrite because I do a lot of recording in that room and this room is not treated at all. But actually, I'm just going to fix that really soon. And I'll probably do a video about like before and after and did it make any difference in the sound, because I'm curious too, so stay tuned for that. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, if you have any requests, or if you have any struggles with recording or making music or making videos, just ask me below. I reply to all the comments unless they're spam, and I'll figure something out. And if you're new to my channel, check my other videos. I have stuff like this. I have a lot of guitar and bass covers. I have a podcast now, so check that out too. And yeah, thanks for watching again and see you later.